We've become quite used to modern entertainers being open about their sexuality. But it wasn't always that way, and for that, you've got Mae West to thank. Mae West was an actress, writer, singer, sex symbol, and American icon. In 1999, the American Film Institute voted her as the 15th female screen legend of classic American cinema. Keep watching as Factsverse takes a look at Mae West's fascinating life and career. Mae West's beginnings. Mary Jane West was born August 17, 1893 in Brooklyn. Her mother, Matilda, had emigrated to the U.S. from Bavaria. She married John Patrick West, and both sides of the family apparently disapproved of the marriage. John West was a prize fighter and later started his own private investigation firm. Matilda worked as a corset and fashion model. Mae began her acting career at age 5 when she performed at a church social. Little Mae must have made an impression because she never stopped entertaining crowds after that. By age 7, she began appearing in amateur talent shows. By age 14, she was performing in vaudeville shows. It was during this time she developed her signature walk and unique speaking style. Through the years, she went by many stage names from Baby Mae and Jane Mast until she finally settled on Mae West. She performed on stage often, and she eventually became a Broadway star. While she's often remembered for her unique acting, she also wrote many of the plays in which she performed. And many of these plays were risque and went against the social norms of the time. So when Mae West flirted and exuded her sexuality in her performances, it was because that's how she wrote her own parts. Her first lead role on Broadway was in a play she wrote entitled Sex. While such a title may seem rather tame or bland by today's standards, it was quite a shock in 1926. The play was eventually shut down by the NYPD, and Mae West was charged with obscenity. On April 19, 1927, Mae West was sentenced to 10 days in jail. Before we tell you more about Mae West, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to Factsverse if you haven't already. An unfortunate position, or was it? Spending 10 days in jail for writing and performing in a supposed obscene play isn't a position most of us would like to find ourselves in. But it seems Mae West could enjoy any position and have fun with it. One of the most memorable stories about her stint in jail was that she refused to wear the underwear that was required of all inmates. Instead, she wore her own silk underwear. Even in jail, she wanted to be rebellious and carry her own style. It was clear these 10 days weren't going to stop her from pursuing her ambitions. Now, you'd think that her refusal to wear the burlap that other female inmates had to wear would land her in more trouble. Quite the opposite. Mae developed a reputation both inside and outside the jail for rebelliousness. In spite of this, she only had to serve 8 days of her jail sentence. She was relieved of the remaining 2 for good behavior. Once on the outside, she returned to writing and starring in plays. Her next play was The Drag. The play is notable for its depiction of homosexuality and cross-dressing, which were extremely taboo subjects in those days. It was around this time Mae West began expressing her support for gay rights and women's rights. She was one of the first actresses to show support for these causes. She was a hit on stage and audiences flocked to see her. Her reputation preceded her, and no matter how hard the censors tried to fight her, she always ended up on top. Through her plays, she continued to develop her famous persona. But stage performances eventually fade out in memory. There was only one other medium that could immortalize Mae West. From bottom to top. Mae was almost 40 when she began her movie career. Her persona from her theater days made her a natural fit for the big screen. Actor George Raft suggested Mae West play the role of Maudie Triplett in Night After Night, which became her debut film. In that film, she was given her opportunity to showcase her now famous persona. She was allowed to rewrite some of her lines to suit her persona. There's one famous scene when a hat-check girl looks at Mae's diamonds and proclaims, "Goodness, what beautiful diamonds." To which Mae replied, "Goodness had nothing to do with it, dearie." This line became one of Mae West's most famous. Decades later, when TV host Dick Cavett interviewed her, he noticed she was wearing diamond jewelry. He stated, "Goodness, what diamonds," and Mae smiled and gave him the same response. Her second film paired her with Cary Grant. It was called I'm No Angel, and it remains one of her most popular films. She received a writing credit for the film, and it went on to become her most successful at the box office. It was also Paramount Pictures' biggest hit of the year. She continued to act in films throughout the 30s. While many of her films were fun comedies, some of them also hit a nerve with America's conservative values. Her film Klondike Annie challenged religion and tried its best to navigate around the Hays Code censorship that existed at the time. She was often paired with some of the most famous actors of the time. In 1940, she was paired with famous comic actor W.C. Fields in the film My Little Chickadee, which went on to become one of his and her biggest hits. Following her appearance in the 1943 film The Heat's On, she took a long hiatus from cinema, upset at the strict censorship that existed at the time. She returned to mostly performing in nightclubs. She only appeared in 2 more films. In 1970, she appeared as Letitia in the film Myra Breckinridge, and her final film role was as Marlowe Manners in the 1977 film Sextet. Mae West's legacy. Over 40 years after her death, you can still find fans impersonating her style. She had a particular style of acting which she carried out in all her performances. This style of acting is often used to critique entertainers who don't have a broad range. But this didn't matter to Mae West. Her off-screen persona and on-screen characters were one and the same. 40 years after her death, you'll see people imitating her style even if they don't fully know who she was. She's remembered as an entertainer who was also unabashed about her sexuality, which was extremely taboo for the time. But she should also be lauded for her bravery to stand up against censorship and to critique the social attitudes of the time. She gave voices not only to women, but to homosexuals, cross-dressers, and other groups not shown to larger society. She wasn't afraid to make a statement, and she was quite good at it. She never really faded from the limelight and continued to give interviews throughout her career. She remains one of Hollywood's most famous and perhaps most notorious sex symbols. Mae West passed away November 22, 1980, at age 87 in Los Angeles. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think Mae West influenced the openness of sexuality we see today? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Factsverse if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.